If you're in the market comparing Housecall Pro and Jobber to each other or even other software, then this video is for you. I recently got this comment from user Neil Johnson on my comprehensive Housecall Pro review video comparing specific features and functionality that I thought would be helpful to address in a video response to also help many of you who have similar questions when comparing. So thanks Neil for submitting that comment. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link to it at the end of this video, and I'm also currently in the process of editing my next review video of Jobber, so like and subscribe if you want to get notified of that as well. For those new here, my name is Joe Guevara, and I'm a technology and business consultant specialized in home, field, and B2B service businesses with over 10 years of business software expertise. If you need any help finding, implementing, or operating the right business software for your trades or service business, you'll find free resources as well as my consulting services on my website, www.rehash.tech. Now, without further ado, let's dive right into the comparison of why Neil thinks Housecall Pro is better than Jobber. So Neil has 9 main points that he covers in his comment, and I'll share my own personal perspective on each, with his first point being the dashboard and reporting functionality. This is a pretty important aspect of any system that changes from platform to platform, because usually software vendors typically don't usually make their own reporting tool, but instead integrate separate solutions from companies like Google, IBM, or other software vendors into their own systems. Housecall Pro, from the looks of it, does actually have a homegrown reporting system compared to Jobber, but that's also why Jobber's system tends to look a bit more modern. From my experience, both HCP and Jobber have predetermined reports that, for any platform, are meant to be used as a business dashboard on the app itself so you can see your KPIs at a glance. If you need to do any deeper analysis, you would typically have to export that data in a CSV or XLS file to have greater flexibility to both edit and analyze their data. That said, Neil has a good point. When I mentioned customizability in my HCP video, I'm referring specifically on being able to report on data that isn't natively in the system. Housecall Pro, for my purposes, if I want to be able to track specific KPIs or business outcomes for my clients, is far more restrictive because it doesn't allow you to add custom fields, whereas Jobber, Thrive, and ServiceTitan all do. So why doesn't HCP have custom fields? It's probably because it's a massive build cost, if I'm right, and they do have their own in-house reporting system to actually develop that field into their platform. That being said, the embedded reporting capability is more restricted in Jobber, which can be solved by exporting the report to a CSV like I mentioned, which for most software is required when you're creating custom fields until you get to the higher end platforms, which costs a lot more money. So ultimately, if you want custom fields and data, other platforms do tend to be better. But if the only fields you need are already in HCP, it's an easier way to centralize your operations and dashboards already in the system. The second point Neil raises is in workflow management, which he mentions in his comment as the pipeline view. And yes, having seen but not used this feature with Housecall Pro, it definitely is a slicker operational tool than what I've seen in Jobber so far. They've structured the feature as a Kanban board, which is a project management process to easily track your jobs based on the different stages in the process it is. As far as I can see, this is a fairly unique feature in this segment of industry-specific software, but is usually more common when you use more customizable or CRM-specific software like HubSpot, Pipedrive, or any others, because this management process is most typically used for agile software development as well as B2B sales funnels. From what I can see, however, this is an add-on with a separate cost, and I haven't seen exact pricing yet, so I've actually reached out to HCP for comment, and I'll update the response in the description below once I get it. When it comes to Jobber or other software, this is usually just done in the form of tags, statuses, and filters in your primary dashboard. So while it doesn't give you the aesthetic project management feel of Pipeline, I haven't seen any slowdowns in actual workflows if you implement the right SOPs in your day-to-day process. As an example, I'm working with a client right now to implement Thrive, and Jobber does have similar functionality, and the client has a more drawn-out onboarding process because they actually get a loan application submitted to a bank in order to approve hardware funding for new clients and jobs, which means a ton of paperwork and signatures before the job's done. That's in addition to new service installations and ongoing service calls and maintenance. So in their case, their process between sales to their back office admin before they can finalize a job is about 8 steps. But to solve for it, you just have to assign the right status for each step, from getting the bank information details from the sales rep, kicking it back if there's any missing information, if it's been submitted, approved, etc. These would be the same steps you'll have as headings in the pipeline board in HCP, but in other systems, it would simply be a status filter as you go on to your day-to-day process. So from a process perspective, this isn't any slower than the pipeline feature, especially if it makes HCP more expensive than Jobber just for that one feature. But again, I haven't tested the pipeline feature directly myself, so feel free to let me know if it does other things beyond that, and take that comment with a grain of salt. Point number 3 is price book customization, and this is where I usually coach business owners the difference between functionality and outcome when choosing different software. His comment states, and I quote, "More powerful and flexible request feature where clients can choose from services in your price book, fill in the values, in his case, amount of windows, and have this transferred directly into an estimate you can produce for them. Jobber has an embarrassingly simplified form that only transfers name address data. We'd probably get greater functionality from a Google form or Zaps." End quote. So this comment is somewhat misleading, so let me explain. The way HCP is built is that it does have direct functionality to feed your price book, which is your list of pre-activated services along with prices and descriptions, directly into your booking or response process. Functionally speaking, this is what Neil is saying is a more powerful feature. Now, personally, I've found that businesses that implement this kind of CTA have a lower response and conversion rate. And to show you why, I'll share what the Jobber workflow looks like, which personally I think makes more sense. The basic principle in marketing is to simplify as much as possible any client-centric interaction and automate as much as possible any internal or back office process. When you automate a lot of non-standard customer processes like choosing a specific service you've created as a business, it creates a high potential for risk, confusion, or complexity that can actually drive away clients. When you look at Jobber's process, you'll see that they structure it as a request, which is any client-driven interaction, then turned into a quote, then a job, then an invoice. Jobber doesn't link any back office services directly into the form, and personally, I don't think you should. It might be more efficient on paper, but it's generally a better idea to ensure that you have some form of human intervention before you convert a booking request into an actual tech role. The correction here I'll make is that Jobber still allows you to fully customize the request, which is the misleading part of that comment. You can add in fields like checkboxes, short and long form answers, and even drop-downs, which can all map to your actual booked services. The only exception where I would recommend fully automating this is if you have absolutely simple service offerings that are purely transactional and has no room for error or editing, which is usually the case for solo jobs. But as you expand your offerings and your services and you want to leave open the opportunity for right sizing and upsells in the form, it's usually best to leave the closing and confirmation to a human being for the best results and the best customer experience. Neil's fourth point goes further about their intake and automation process, and I quote, as we refer to HCP, "More robust client, sub-client, and multi-property organization, allowing you to have auto SMS, email go to one person and the job invoice to another, as well as the ability to merge client files. Jobber creates duplicate clients through their form and is too simple when it comes to the hierarchy of clients and contacts. It's actually non-existent." So this one's a bit confusing because I personally haven't run into this limitation myself when it comes to communication, which I'll address in a second. And the latter point about the client and contact hierarchy is correct, but situational. But the last sentence about the client duplication gives me a little bit of insight on his thought process and what he means. Like I said in my previous point, Jobber's intake philosophy is based on the idea that inbound forms are requests, not confirmed jobs. So it doesn't allow gating for restrictions for duplication because there are instances where you may actually turn away perfectly legitimate clients automatically because of duplicate data field restrictions, even if they're about different jobs. This is where clients find services like mine useful because the decision of what you should and shouldn't automate in your business is highly specific to your business model, and your target market. If client communication is the priority and having nuanced control over how you market, onboard, and automate client-side process is important in how you're planning to scale your business, including the more specific hierarchy requirements like you mentioned, then I would actually personally recommend Thrive because you have much more integrated and specialized spectrum of capabilities for client communication workflows. As I'm also certified in the Thrive platform, among other software, if you want to see a demo to discuss your particular workflow and compare the three, I'll leave a booking link into my calendar in the description below. Ultimately, I've only seen a need for distinct contact and client hierarchy if you're a B2B service business, but there might be some use cases I just personally haven't come across yet in residential where it might also make sense. Now moving on to point 5, and I quote, far more customizable and complex automation for communications with diverse triggers, not to mention ability to hyperlink. Jobber only has specific times you can send messages without any customization besides what the message says, whether it's sent or not, and no hyperlinking. So as far as I can tell, these automations he's saying exists in HTTP isn't native to the platform. They're doable if you know how to use Zapier as an example or any of their integrated email marketing integrations. If you do the free trials, and I'll leave the latest discount links and offers with the free demo to both HTTP and Jobber in the description below, you'll easily see the automation capabilities for both. Between just the two, I would actually give the edge to Jobber because they have a deep integration with MailChimp that they've actually productized. But there are some downsides to that as well that I'll cover in my upcoming Jobber review video. The main point here is that for communication automation, neither HCP or Jobber are actually really good at being communications platforms. They're first and foremost business management tools. Both will need to connect to an external platform if you want to do any sort of email marketing or truly unified communications like phone calls outside of just the next point that Neil raises that I'll talk about in just a second. The only platform that actually has truly integrated unified communications is Thrive. Some of the restrictions HTTP and Jobber put on their platform when it comes to communications and hyperlinking are actually to ensure deliverability of email. When it comes to email marketing, a software needs specific and a lot more capabilities to make sure your domain doesn't get automatically sent to spam, or worse, your domain fully blacklisted. Remember that the communication automation in both HTTP and Jobber is meant to be tied to specific triggers based on the workflow, not so that you can email whatever you want, whenever you want. That's what these email marketing software is for. Which leads us to point number 6, VoIP and SMS integration. Same as the previous point, Jobber and HCP are both business management tools, not communication platforms. This is directly in line with what I already mentioned in my HCP review video that they do have a white-labeled VoIP platform integrated into the system for an extra $65 US a month. The benefit of which is that it is integrated with the internal HCP platform for both automation and analytics. That being said, it's the same reason I had mentioned HCP is primarily good for solopreneurs and small startups. As you scale, your communication channel requirements are likely to change and expand as you delegate answering your phone to an admin and you have a larger and more distributed team. The efficiencies and capabilities of standalone VoIP platforms for the majority of businesses above 2 employees that I've worked with generally far outweigh the integrated automation HCP provides, since at that scale, you're going to have to do a decent amount of data validation and correction that generally counteracts any efficiency gains. If you're on HCP or Jobber, it usually makes sense to get something standalone. The two I would recommend looking at are OpenPhone for something basic and cheap, or AirCall for something more advanced and interconnected. I'll leave both again in the description below. Perhaps in the future, HCP will develop its VoIP platform further, but as it stands now, it's nowhere near worth the price that they're charging for it if you have multiple employees, but absolutely fantastic if you're working solo or as 2 or 3 person team. Now, number 7 is about more complex sales proposals and service plan capabilities. So, as I'm recording this video and reading some of these points, it's starting to sound like this comment is actually coming from someone that might work at HCP, or the salesperson that Neil is talking to isn't being very forthcoming. He essentially says that HCP has a better and more customizable service plan and proposal capabilities. Now, I'll copy the original comment into the comments below in this video in case it gets deleted, but to summarize that might take, Both sales proposals and service plans, I had a far easier time implementing and customizing in Jobber when I first used it than HCP. That this point, in my opinion, is absolutely incorrect. And if you look at review sites all across the board, that's generally the consensus for people who've used the platform. Even the basic wizard that Jobber offers creates service plans for you that you just need to edit, and is all tied into their proposal management, quoting, and invoicing system. When I had to do the same in HCP, it was mostly a manual process, and even then it wasn't very intuitive, especially when you wanted to control what actually gets shown into the invoice, where there was virtually zero customization. You don't have to take my word for it, of course. Just do the trial for each of these and make sure to test out this feature yourself, and let us know in the comments below your own experience. I could be completely wrong, so happy to get feedback from the community if you think HCP is actually simpler to use for your business. Alright, moving on to number 8. The longer we go, the more each point sounds like a marketing copy. So the comment verbatim, and I quote, "Built-in capabilities for tech reporting and P4P, or pay for performance, which I'm beginning to understand is the future of home service industry and necessary for attracting and retaining quality team members, but also having them perform at their best in the way the company profits. Jobber has only labor costs, which HCP also has," end quote. So personally, I have yet to come across a client who's asked me to do a performance-based pay system for techs or crew, so I can't respond to this in detail. So if you're a home or field service business owner and you know what pay-for-performance processes needs to get implemented in your business and get automated, please write it in the comments below, and I'll respond with specific thoughts on what features or capabilities different software have that can accommodate it. As a high level, when it comes to tech reporting, because of the more robust GPS tracking functionality of Jobber alongside their time tracking and job costing capabilities, I can't actually see which feature HCP has that would be relevant for pay for performance, so looking forward to those responses down below. The last point Neil mentions is about the field functionality, or the app experience primarily for techs. And I quote, "Far greater functionality through the app in the field. I haven't seen much that Jobber has that HCP doesn't have, and HCP has all of these things for the same price Jobber is charging for its Grow plan," end quote. So besides the look and feel, HCP and Jobber's field apps are on par in my opinion based on user or technician experience. I would personally question the point of HCP having far greater functionality compared to Jobber, since I'd challenge exactly what functionality he's describing, because after having reviewed both, if anything, Jobber has the more nuanced GPS functionality, has better integrations, and arguably a more intuitive interface. Personally, I'd call this point a wash, since they're both great apps as long as your business maps to the process of each platform in the back end. Again, I'll follow up with him to clarify exactly what features he's talking about and update down below. Now, to summarize, he closes off saying that HCP is going to save him roughly $600 to $700 a month and give him more, which I would highly question, since both HCP and Jobber have virtually the same pricing tiers alongside the same pricing. Not to mention, based on the features he's saying HCP is going to deliver that he needs as part of this comment, you would have to be on the highest HCP package to get those features in the first place, in addition to the add-ons of the VoIP system and the pipeline add-on. So I'll follow up with Neil on the specifics of that comment after this video and post any responses in the comment section below. But let me know if you have the same experience as Neil based on the above, and let others know about your own experiences as well. But in any case, this is one great example of why it makes sense to have an experienced and specialized business technologist help you pick, implement, and sometimes even operate your technology solutions so you can save yourself money, headache, and risks down the road. If you have a home and field service business and need a hand with technology, check out my website, www.rehash.tech, and I offer different service packages as well as even free resources if you want to still DIY, tailored to the industry. Otherwise, if you are considering Housecall Pro, then check out our comprehensive review video over here. Otherwise, we should have our comprehensive Jobber and Thrive reviews coming in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for watching. This is Joe signing out, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one.